I'm here today at Howden Bridge with Dr Colin Bull from Stirling University, and he's been really interested to come down here and have a look at our new rock ramp. Thanks for coming, Colin.
You're welcome, Jo. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I'm very pleased with this new rock ramp that we have at Howden Bridge.
Yep.
I just think a rock ramp has the potential to create so much new habitat and improve on existing habitat. What are your thoughts on the template that this provides for biodiversity?
Actually, I think it's a fantastic opportunity compared to so many other solutions that have been put in place for obstacles. It really does allow a great mixture of habitats to develop, and also not only for them to develop, but for them to be utilised at different times of the year by different organisms, and really to provide what you need as a complex foundation for multiple different kinds of communities to develop here.
Yeah.
So it's a great solution to what was a very big problem.
Yeah, and even just looking at this rock ramp, you can immediately see that it's covered in little crevices and cracks, and they're perfect cover for fish and for invertebrates. So it's actually creating a lot of places where these species can actually survive, and they can possibly even do better than they did before.
Well, that's it. I mean, you've got one of the most biodiverse areas around the edges of rivers anyway, where you have that transition between wet and dry, and it's occasionally covered and occasionally dry.
Yeah.
That you're actually promoting the development of here. You've got the ability, with all of the rocks studded and embedded together, to create these little habitat niches for them to be actually colonised, and then this ecotone, this area could be expanded, and before long you're going to have a lovely, rich community set up across the structure. So it's it's a win-win.
That's what I think. And if you walk in amongst these rocks where they're damp or wet, you'll find that they're very slippy.
Yeah.
And that's, as you know, that's where you have the diatoms starting to grow in. And they provide a basis for the invertebrate food web.
Absolutely.
And of course, if you have plenty of invertebrates, then you have a lot of feeding for the fish community that live there, and then they're able to become more abundant and survive a bit better, maybe reproduce a bit more as well. Yeah,
so I mean, if you think of the bed of the stream or around the banks as being the kind of theatre on which all of the kind of the ecological processes are played out, if you can increase the size of that theatre, the surface area, by having lots of different shapes and sizes within there, then you're increasing that productivity. So if you have something that has got a lot of complexity in it already to be colonised, you can only benefit by having an improved amount of opportunity there. So.
That's it exactly. And you can see even at first glance, looking at this rock ramp, that you've got a diversity of habitat for fish. You've got your nice pool areas, they have backwaters in them, they're quite deep, they provide cover for larger fish. You've got riffle areas, you've got runs, and it's also the transition between different types of flow, different types of aquatic habitat where species do well.
The benefit of structure like this in terms of providing these additional habitats is the fact that you're not limited by the flow level. So you have very, very shallow areas that can be quite easily submerged and then colonised and used as a temporary kind of location. And it's this wet-dry boundary which you're promoting here, and you're actually allowing there to be almost like areas that will retain water and small, akin to maybe a tide coming in and out from a rock pool.
Oh, yeah.
You're allowing the water to come up, regenerate an area, provide it with the seed, with the nutrients, and then as the water goes down again in the summer, that will then flourish and provide the area for growth. So you can think of it as not having a stark contrast between wet and dry, but you're promoting this lovely, damp
continuum.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where these kind of structures have a huge benefit over a hard engineered, very stark, smooth concrete face, which the traditional way of engineering used to be.
And one of the things I like about this rock ramp is, to me, it just embodies sustainability, because it's designed in such a way, as you say, it will function for fish to pass it in all kinds of flows. It's designed not to require a lot of maintenance, so there'll be no further expense or input required to maintain this structure. So it's sustainable in that way. And it's been constructed very carefully to preserve this island, which you can see the trees on it are doing really well. They're coming into leaf now. And that provides some much needed shade, which of course we all know that plenty of trees means that you can help combat climate change and changes in temperature. But they've constructed this very carefully to save these trees and to save the island for that reason. The island of course functions as a nice refuge for the local otter population.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if you're aware, but there are otters breeding in this area.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. That's excellent.
Whenever they constructed this rock ramp, they did it in 2 stages. So at no time was the channel completely closed. So they did the south side first. The otters continued to use the north bank. Then when they moved across to the north bank, the otters then moved straight over to the south bank.
Fantastic.
And pretty much immediately that this rock ramp has been completed, the otters have completely moved back into the area, and in actual fact are using the rocks of the rock ramp as prominent display locations for their spraints, that's their poo, which they use to display their presence to other otters.
Yep.
So the process of the rock ramp going in has been very sensitive to the otters, and I think they've come back here stronger than ever. These pools and the low flow channel give them really great fishing opportunities.
Yeah. It's absolutely, as you say, you're providing them with a habitat that they've automatically recognised as very like the normal channel.
Yeah.
They haven't taken any delay, they've come back in and they're using it, they're actually fishing here, they're establishing themselves, and the evidence is there for us all to see. So, you know, as a top predator, having them there shows that there's a base for them to actually be feeding on. The fish are there because the invertebrates are there, and the invertebrates are there because the habitat is there for them.
Yeah.
So it's a good way of indicating a healthy community if you can see the presence of these top predators. So
yeah.
It's lovely to see them here, it really is.
I know exactly. We've talked about fish, invertebrates, diatoms, otters. So really, I think this rock ramp represents an organic process taking place on an engineered structure, which I think really maximises the benefit of putting fish passage in at this location.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with you in the fact that you're providing the foundation for natural processes to occur. You're not restraining the natural processes. You're allowing them to have a little bit of variability. The river moves. It's a dynamic, beautiful thing. It has to have room to move, and here you can see behind us, you're not restricting the width of the river at all. It's got a lot of opportunity for it to actually flow across lots of structures, and in this instance, when we talk about something being a benefit for the environment, something that might not look very tidy to us as human beings is actually a huge benefit for the ecology. We want that roughness, we want those niches, those little nooks and crannies that can be colonised and provide the refuge, which is so important when we're looking particularly into the future, when we're looking for resilience in our communities. Who knows what's going to happen in decades to come, but we need to know that we are allowing there to be a range of opportunities and habitats for our aquatic communities to survive whatever changes things like climate change are going to bring.
Exactly, you're absolutely right as well to say there is a lot of space here. And for good levels of biodiversity, what does biodiversity need? But habitat diversity, and you have habitat diversity here in absolute abundance. So I think from that point of view, it's really beneficial. Yeah,
I mean, you just have to look behind to see the space, the area that's been created. It's not, it is not restrictive. It's actually expanding that habitat, and it's a variety of habitats. It's not just one kind of concrete or one kind of substrate. You've got a mix of sizes and orientations. And that's what creates the Amazon rainforest. I mean, not saying it's the Amazon rainforest, but it's like the same principle as you create the template, you create the layers, and then the organisms will colonise and establish themselves.
And you were talking about what will happen to this area, you know, down the line in 10 years' time. It's worth bearing in mind this rock ramp is just literally being finished a couple of days ago. And already, I mean, it looks good. It's running at low flow. It's functioning perfectly for fish passage. And I'm not just talking about the salmon and the sea trout. This is very suitable really for all species of fish, because as you know, we have also eel and lamprey present on the Almond, and they're going to have no bother at all, I think, moving through, up and down through this section.
It's so important to think about that aspect. So much of our design of fish passes in the past has been very much focused on one size of fish or one kind of fish that we were all interested in at the time, but now there really is a fantastic and important move forward in these kinds of designs and thinking about the complexity of the fish community. And it's not just about looking for large salmon to jump up things or to move and connect a habitat upstream with downstream. Fish move about all over the place, and the more we find out about them, the more we recognise how important it is to make sure that we don't place something in the way of that. And again, it goes back to this idea of resilience. We don't know what's going to happen. If we start to limit those migrations by putting something in place or not removing something, then it can only have a negative impact for the future when we don't know whether we're restricting a certain attribute of the fish we don't know about yet that might allow them to be resilient to something like climate change in the future. We can't foresee that, but it certainly makes good sense to be as cautious as possible and use these kinds of structures wherever we can to provide as much opportunity for fish passage as we can.
And I think as the years go on, this area is going to change a lot. At the minute you can see a lot of rock about. We've got our low flow channels running perfectly, but as time goes on, these rocks are going to start to accumulate debris and sediments, and then vegetation is likely to start to take root in some of those sediments, and you'll get successional vegetation taking over as well, and it'll really naturalise the look of it as well. And I'm pretty confident that 5 or 10 years time, you would look at this area and not know that there's actually a man-made structure underneath it.
It's amazing how quickly after a few winter floods that the sediment does get redistributed. That's what a river does after all. I mean, it's moving sediment from upstream to downstream. If you block that, it builds up, and then there's problems downstream for sediment starvation. So this structure will allow that sediment to pass, but in high flow conditions there's great opportunity to trap sediment and provide these little pockets for vegetation succession to come online. So it's the kind of nature-like fishery that everyone really wants to see, and it's great to see it at such a big scale here.
Yeah, it certainly is, to my mind, possibly the best option really for a fish passage and for biodiversity as a whole as well.